So this screencast is all about the difference between the reflowable ebook and the fixed layout ebook. And so what we're going to do is just for this first part of a two-part screencast, we're going to look at the very basic differences and what kinds of things we might want to do if we're making a fixed layout ebook. Now what I've got on the screen at the moment is my Greek Island recipes book. You can see that I've got 6 recipes in a book panel, prelims, introduction and so on, and a colophon. Now the way that this was set up originally for the reflowable ebook was simply single pages. So if we look at just one of these recipes, for example, it's simply threaded text. I've already made a few changes to take account of the fact that I want to make this into a fixed layout ebook, and there's one example that we've got come straight to. When we make a fixed layout ebook, we can use images right to the very edge of the page because we have the whole page available to us. So going back to our prelims then, now the other thing is that when we export this as a fixed layout ebook, everything that we see on the page will be in the ebook. So even things like the master page items, which hitherto we haven't made use of in our reflowable ebook. So once again, if I just take a look at one of these recipes, things like the header and the footer, in other words the page numbers and the title of the book, for example, which are currently on the master pages. So there's an example. That won't come out in the reflowable ebook, which I'm sure you've already discovered. However, it will be in the fixed layout. So we have to pay attention to that. If you haven't got page numbers, for example, in your ebook, because you haven't been concerned about it for the reflowable version, then you will want to put them in for the fixed layout. However, it's going to depend on the way that you want this to be presented in the fixed layout ebook. Now what we can do is just to have a look at this in its basic form if we now make this into a fixed layout ebook. So just to look at one or two items here, here's another example of where I've made a very slight change. I've also at the moment looking at this page here, it looks as if I've got some overset text because I've added an image. So I'm just going to add another page here and correct that. So let's just pick up that overset text and plop it down onto the screen here. So this is an example again of where you might want to look at every single page in the ebook carefully, because here we have, for example, just 2 lines of text appearing at the top of this page. And this is probably not such a good idea. So you might want then to make some adjustments to this. For example, if we now reduce this image down slightly, you'll see that as I gradually reduce it and possibly even move it to this space here, you'll see that we then resolve that issue. So once again, I can delete that page. So fixed layout means every page is going to be in there. So you can make adjustments to make sure that you don't have any pages with very small amounts of text on the beginning. Here's another example where we haven't got a lot of text, we've got a vast amount of space, so it might be worth looking at the possibility of finding another image of cheese pie in this particular case, and adding this to the end of the page. I'm not going to do this right now, but this is something you need to be aware of before you carry on making the fixed layout version. Here's another example here. Rather than have this image here, we might want to release the anchoring, because again, bear in mind you do not need to anchor images necessarily. You did in the reflowable, but you don't anymore in the fixed. So if you want to release it, you can do this, and then what you could do is to put this image so that it appears, it makes use of the whole of the page from side to side. And as you can see, this will actually fill the whole page, but I'm not intending to do that. I'm just going to use the top half of this image. Let's just crop it a bit. Like this. Okay, so we can use it in this form rather than the other form. It's just one example of the kinds of things that we can do. Okay, so we have single pages. We are going to get single pages in our fixed layout ebook, as you'll see in a moment. The table of contents is currently off the page, and I'm going to leave it that way for this example, but I do need to update this. So I'm just simply going to go into my table of contents and update this. Okay, so we're now ready to go through the export process, but we do this from within the book panel. So I'm going to export this book to ePub. I'm going to make this into a fixed layout ebook. I'm just making sure I'm putting it in the right location. I've chosen fixed layout. I'm going to choose my cover. We just need to go back one level here for the cover. Let's go for this slightly different version here. Now we need to make sure that we use the same multi-level table of contents, and we're going to choose the one that's saved within the ebook. Now under options, this is the critical issue here. We're currently going to just base it on the document setup. That means in this case single pages. So what will happen is we'll get single pages, but the users can see it side by side if their device supports that. So they see a page side by side if they set it onto landscape, for example. On the other hand, if you want to force people to only see this in single pages, then disable spreads is for you. There are some other options here which we must make sure that we fill in as before with our reflowable. Same thing, we need to put in author and so on. I'll just fill this out very quickly, but we need to put in date, description, publisher, all of those kinds of things. So now if I hit OK, this should now go through and create a fixed layout ebook, and we should then see this opening in iBooks. Okay, so here we are. Here's the first page. This is our title page, copyright page, introduction, and then we have, as you can see, an image that goes from side to side. Now our table of contents is, as you can see, part of the user interface. As before. So we basically have created our fixed layout ebook. As you can see, the reason that we know it's fixed layout is no access to any changing of the fonts. Also, if we go to view, you can see that there's no single page, two page option. It's simply a single page because that was what we chose. Also, the other thing is that when we look at the images, we can't enlarge those images. Let's go back to one of the recipes. For example, here, there's no double clicking on this image to enlarge it up. If we were looking at it on an iPad, we would be able to pinch in to see that. Okay, so this is the first option then, and I'm just going to put this away, and we'll go back now to look at this. Now, another option, as you may have noticed when we exported it, is that we can make this into a landscape ebook. That is to say, we can effectively glue the pages together. So I'll just run through just very quickly bring up onto the screen the export to ePub again. Now down here you'll see that I've currently got disable spreads. That was what we just did. But what I can do is to convert the spread to landscape page. Now, currently we don't have a spread, so that means that we have to do two things in our InDesign work. We have to go back to the basic page layout. Let me just cancel this. So under File, Document Setup, we now need to change this to facing pages. But we need to do this for every one of our InDesign documents in here. Now I'll show you how this works. Currently this is not a spread, it's 2 single pages. So effectively, if this was a book, or this would be printing, this would be the facing page and the reverse of that facing page. But what we now need to do is to bring these pages together as one spread. So the way that we do this is we simply take this first page, you're looking at the Pages panel now, and we insert a page before this page. And there's just one thing I've forgotten to do, sorry. Right click over this and make sure that you have allowed document pages to shuffle off. So untick this so that the pages can't shuffle as we add pages. So I'm inserting a page before this page, and I'm going to turn this into a double page spread. Now as you can see, I've got 2 pages, but they're both to the right of the spine. So what I now need to do is to drag this page on its own. Make sure you just select the one page, drag it on its own until you see the little arrow turning to the left. Okay, so now we've got 2 pages here. Now what we need to do is to add a page after this page. Okay, now there's only one problem with this, and that is to do with the page numbering. Because as you can see at the bottom of the page, I've got 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Well, actually, odd pages should always be on the right. So this means that what we need to do for our right-hand page, and if we right-click over this, we need to go to Numbering and Section Options and start the page there at number 1. Of course, you'll get a warning because we've now got 2 page 1s. But we don't need to worry too much about that because this is going to end up being a double spread anyway. Okay, so now that we've got our double spread, and I should just emphasize to you that we are going to need to do this for all of the pages in the book. Turn them all into double page spreads. Let's just move this back into our menus. And go back and have a look at this double spread here. Now what I want to do here is to take this page and turn this into the first entry point of our landscape format book. So the way that I do this, well, I want to put the title over the whole thing. But the first thing I want to do is to add an image. So I'm going to place an image here. Let's use some Greek lettering. And this is this image is plenty big enough for me. I want to increase the size so that it fills the whole page, and I want to take it to the back. So I'm sending it to the back. Now what I want to do with this is I want to now take this object, which is currently grouped. I'm going to ungroup it. Let's just put our publisher logo out of the way for the moment. And I'm going to enlarge this up. And I'm going to do a few things to this title. For example, I'm going to make this centered, and I'm going to change the color of this. By going to my swatches. So I'm looking for my swatches here, and I'm going to turn that into paper colour. So in other words, it's white. Let's just center this. And the same with the author. Let's make the author into white. Okay, so this is my title page. And now what I've got here is my copyright page on one half of the next spread. But what I'm going to do is to bring the table of contents now onto the page. So we're actually going to make this a bit bigger. So we're going to do something like, let's just zoom in on this. We need to now make this text a lot bigger. So we're now looking at the paragraph style. This is top body text. Okay, so we certainly want this to be a lot bigger. So I'm going to make this into 20 point on 25 point leading, even possibly bigger. Let's just make it even bigger. Got plenty of space here. So we need a bit more space. Okay, now the next thing is that what we need to do with this text is we need to make sure that the page numbering moves to the very right. So we do that by using a right justify. There we have it. And then what we want to do is to put some kind of line or dots between the name of the page and the page number. So we do that with our tabs. And what we're looking for is a right justified tab. So I'm going to put a right justified tab there. I'm going to put a leader of a single dot, which I'm looking for on my keyboard, and I'm going to repeat that. Okay, so that's much better. Obviously we've got plenty of space here for images if we want on this page here, so we could even add another image. Let's say, for example, let's take a nice picture of a mermaid on a plate. Now we can add it like this, so that it's simply on the right hand page, or we could use use the whole spread. In fact, what I'm going to do is to increase the size of this. And then take the copyright information up to the top and simply make use of this image here. Let's bring that down into the... Okay, and of course, just another option. Okay, so now we've got the first two pages. We can save this, but what we need to do, of course, is to now go through all of the pages. We can do the same thing with this one here. We need to make this into a double page spread. So here you can see I've taken a little bit of time out to now make each of these recipes or each of these documents in InDesign into a double page spread. So here's my introductory page, recipe 1. So I've done a few different things just to show you a variety of ways of making these double page spreads. So here we've got two images now filling up the space. This one here, we've got an image that's going all the way across the left hand page, and then we've filled up, because this then takes up 3 pages. We've then added a page with an image from a menu from a Greek island. Here's another one where we've actually taken another approach to the way that this looks. It's just come out a little bit now. Recipe number 4, again similar kind of idea. Recipe 5, recipe 6, and then even with the colophon, which was originally one single page, we've now, because this is the very end of the book, we've now just simply added an image, added a page and added an image to it. So we now have everything ready to go. So I'm going to go into my export. No, sorry, there is one more thing I've forgotten to do, and that is to do with the table of contents, of course, because as you add pages, you really do need to make sure that you update the table of contents. So I'm updating the table of contents through here. Okay, that should have now put the correct page numbers in. Let's just save this and now export this book to ePub. Fix layout again, overwrite the original one. We've still got the cover. We're using the multi-level TOC style table of contents, and I want to make sure that the spreads are converted to one single landscape page. That's what I've done there. Let's see what happens. Hopefully we won't get any error messages, but it does sometimes happen. Okay, now that seemed to work quite well. Okay, now let's have a look and see what we've got. Okay, so this is our opening page. Table of contents, copyright page, introductory page, and then you can see that we still have the table of contents up here, so we can go straight to one particular section. You'll also notice with fixed layout ebook we also have this this thumbnail view, so we can go straight in looking at the thumbnails along the bottom of the page. And finally, of course, the very last page, which was the colophon. And the table of contents also on the page should be interactive, taking us straight to that page. Okay.